Move to North America, where Los Angeles is on edge tonight as the city struggles to contain a wave of violence sparked by anti-immigration protests. Mayor Karen Bass has declared a local emergency and imposed a curfew in parts of downtown LA after nearly 24 businesses were looted. The curfew, which covers a 1 square mile area, began at 8 p.m. and will last until 6 a.m. local time, and officials warn it may continue for several days. Meanwhile, Governor Gavin Newsom also addressed Californians earlier. Let's take a listen in to what he said during the press conference.
If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account. That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated, full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Again, thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public. Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard. Just yesterday, we filed a legal challenge to Donald Trump's reckless deployment of American troops to a major American city. Today, we sought an emergency court order to stop the use of the American military to engage in law enforcement activities across Los Angeles. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe.
US President Donald Trump, on the other hand, has a different thought process. Let's take a listen in to what he stated.
Will be met with the protest. Oh, the military will be very heavy for us. I'm very proud to tell you that. They might as well turn around. They're wasting their time. Some of them will end up in jail for a long period of engagement. I just want to see peace. If there's peace, we get out. If there's even a chance of no peace, we stay there until there's peace. And a lot of people are being arrested. The rioters, or whatever you want to call them, they better know a lot of people are being arrested. They're going to be in jail for a long time. Thank you very much.
In just 24 hours, Los Angeles police have arrested 197 people as the city struggles to restore order. Protests continue as there seems to be no end to the unrest. Now we're joined by Jim Rice, Professor of International Law located in Vigan, Philippines, to discuss this in further detail. Jim, thank you very much for joining us. Jim, this has been going on for a few days now. Donald Trump has put these troops on the streets. There's news of these protests dying down. However, Donald Trump's imposition of troops in the Los Angeles area has increased. What are your thoughts?
Well, thanks for having me on, Thomas. Again, I would agree with Mayor Bass and her decision to impose a curfew. I believe that the violence of in the protests is unacceptable, and the law should be enforced. However, I believe that Donald Trump has no interest in these protests or in this unrest being calmed down. Rather, he's trying to encourage it. I was in the Hong Kong protests in June of 2019, and since I was there, I can bear witness to the fact that the protests were completely peaceful until the police provoked the protesters by firing tear gas directly into the crowds. And this is the thing that caused the unrest. And it continued in 2020 when the Chinese government imposed a very, very draconian national security law on Hong Kong, which basically resulted in the arrest and detention of many of the protesters whose really only crime was to take part in peaceful protests.
Yes.
So again, I agree with Mayor Bass's action. I hope that the protests calm down. However, there is going to be a nationwide series of protests on the 14th of June, and I believe that Trump is just using this as a pretext to try and chill this otherwise peaceful protest.
Jim, a governor of one of the most safe democratic states in the United States and a Republican hardline president are outwardly criticizing each other's actions. Is there any legal precedent that Donald Trump used to override Governor Gavin Newsom's statements? He said he didn't want these troops on the streets of Los Angeles. Donald Trump has put them on anyway. What are your thoughts on this president-governor showdown?
Well, I agree with the governor in this dispute. I watched his speech just a few minutes ago. To try and answer your question as briefly as I can, there were a few incidents where the president overrode the governor, and that was in Alabama in 1965, 60 years ago, in which white racists were harassing and attacking civil rights protesters, including Martin Luther King. The other example where both the governor of California and the United States president brought on the National Guard in California was during the Rodney King riots of 1992.
Jim, critics of this believe that Donald Trump is making these riots political, as his immigration policy and deportation policy is one of his most signature policies, let's say. Obviously, these protests are protesting against said deportations. Do you think that is the case for the Trump administration?
There's no question about it. Trump did run on immigration, but of course what he did was he mischaracterized the issue. Rather than saying that he was going to be arresting and detaining and deporting dishwashers and farm workers and gardeners and people who put roofs on houses, in other words, hardworking men and women, he characterized the immigrants as the worst of the worst, people from insane asylums, rapists, murderers, and he used this to inflame the community and divide the nation.
Jim, and finally, we've seen the state of California now sue the Trump administration. Do you think there can be any momentum behind this legal precedent?
It's hard to predict what the courts will eventually decide. My guess is probably that the courts will give the benefit of the doubt to the executive branch, the president at this time. But it should be known by everyone that Trump is not trying to enforce law and order. Rather, he's trying to use this controversy for his own political purpose, which is to amass and consolidate his own political power.
Jim Rice, thank you very much for joining us on the program and your insight as always. Now we move to Europe, where Russian strikes on Ukraine's northeastern city of